Welcome to another episode of Growing in Real Estate with Jacob Davenport and some phenomenal people right here. I have Tom Hall. Tom, I'm going to say hello.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing? Thank you for having me back. I loved our conversation last time. It was like a nice awakening of the spirit. So let's talk about making money and how to be successful in life and in real estate. You know.
Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. I'm guessing that this one's going to be even better just because our energies continue to connect a whole lot more, and that's what it's all about. And then we have Trey, Big Money Trey. What's going on? Trey the Truth?
You know, I'm not as smooth as Tom is on the mic, but I'm excited for today. I think we're going to get some good I know we're going to get some good content, and we got two badasses right here, so.
And that's all Trey wants is good content.
That's it. Crystal clear.
Good content. Good content. That's gold, brother.
You got to get that button where it makes a sound effect. Boom, boom, boom.
If you guys didn't know, we actually got a little buzzer in our pockets that Trey puts. So every time we say something good, it goes.
Yeah. Right.
I gotta get one. I gotta get like shock bracelets for you guys.
See?
Anytime you guys are saying something boring, I gotta be like, come on, bring the juice.
It's all training.
We're dropping the sauce. I know you had a couple ideas, but we're gonna dive right into it.
Let's get into it.
I think the other question in advance, I think, Tom, are you going to be dropping some bars for us today?
Oh, drop some bars. You know, I did.
Keep that mic ready, by the way, Tom.
I did write something the other day. I could.
Beyond business and working with people and funds and a lot of creative other things that Tom has talked about in the previous podcast, and we'll go deeper in today. You know, Tom is an artist. He raps.
Oh, man.
And nothing light either, right? So if the world of fun ever disappeared, he would probably be dropping a whole lot of tracks, a whole album.
Well, you know, a couple people might listen, but
I would. Let's hear what you got, man. You want to go?
Oh no, we'll see if the move strikes, but
It will eventually. Can I kick us off real quick?
Please.
With a question? All right, Tom. So one of the things that struck me right away about you and your business is I actually rent this office building from Tom, and I rent this office from Tom, who owns the building.
Yeah.
And when I first met him, one of the things that really caught my ear was I asked you what you did, and you said, "Oh, I invest in real estate. Our fund, we're raising $350 million this round."
Yeah.
And I saw a little kind of smirk come from you because you were like, "Oh, this," and kind of tell me what your thought process was when you told me that number, and just a little bit about that.
I mean, I grew up in Hayward, middle class family, lower middle class, and I mean, that was just a number I couldn't ever imagine coming out of my mouth. And I knew that you were a young guy that wanted to be successful. And I knew you were probably going to be like, did this dude just say $400 million? And so I just thought to myself, I'm like, here I am telling, someone that has dreams and aspirations like I used to have when I was your age. And I was like, damn, I really did it, Yeah. And multiple times. It's not my first $400 million fund. So I've raised over $1 billion in my career, well over $1 billion. And so, that's just insane to me to say, because when I first started, it was just like, I should have brought my piece of paper down. I drew on this piece of paper how I did my first deal. I'll break it down next time. And it was like, all right, we're going to buy this property. It's going to be 75% loan, 25% equity. The equity was $2.5 million, so it was like a $10 million deal. And I was going to get $2.25 million of that from a 1031 exchange investor. And then I had to raise $225,000 for the GP contribution, or 10%, to kind of get the deal done. That's how private equity, works. And I didn't have $250,000, so I had to go to some other friends, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to put in $225,000 into my deal, and I'll give you guys a piece of my upside if I get there. And it's just like I drew it on this big piece of paper, like how to do it. And I literally took that and had people come to my office and just sold them on it. So like on my first deal, I only put in $15,000 and bought a $10 million deal that I was in control of.
Wow.
Yeah.
In that fund, that first fund where you raised $2.25 million, right?
It was not a fund. It was just for a single property.
Okay, and in that syndication, when you raised that money, that $2.25 million, what do you think was the number one skill that allowed you to do that? Was it the sales ability? Was it the confidence? Was it the ability to analyze numbers? What was that number one skill?
First of all, I was a CPA. So I had I understood like tax law. I understood, I had some validity to my financial background. So when I said, hey, I looked at the numbers, I looked over, and at the time I had probably only underwritten like maybe 50 deals. Now I've probably, done 5,000. But I was like, hey, I looked over 50 deals. This is the one I like the most. Here's why I like it. And so when people came in, they gave me some trust. They gave me some credibility for the number analysis, which I think for a lot of astute investors is very, first, but then number two, they have to trust you. So I had an introduction to them from the guy that was helping me. He was going to sign on the loan. So he told them, hey, Tom's a smart guy. I'm going to sign on the loan for this deal. So just by him signing on that loan as a guarantor gave me a lot of credibility.
There you go. No, I think you brought up an interesting point there. When it comes to finding the investors, you met somebody who was able to be a signer or a guarantor
on the loan, yeah.
And then how did the extrapolation go from there on finding the next investors? What was your process?
Man, I'm just a hustler. But really, it was just like, I was like, well, so think about this, a $10 million deal, I got to put in $15,000 to be in control of this. I'm like, he's going to sign for $7.5 million. We're getting a loan from the government, actually. It was a Fannie Mae loan. So I was just like, I got to find $2.5 million. So first of all, you go in and say, hey, I got this loan. It was a super good loan. It was good positive leverage. And then he used to do these 1031 kind of classes. And so he allowed me to come speak at one of these classes and show the deal. And so I just kind of brought out the whole deal, pitched it to him. This one guy came up. He goes, oh, that's a really interesting deal. He's like, I have an exchange coming up. I'm selling this retail building in Oakland. And this property was in South Carolina. And he was just like, I'd be interested. And he ended up putting in $1.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. But he also knew Wayne, because the Wayne was the guy that was signing the loan. So there was a level of trust between the two of them. His investment was secured because he's directly into, a piece of property. He flew out and saw the property with me. So it wasn't, he's like, I'm deed on a property. It was a good investment, He felt safe and comfortable.
I think that speaks to the importance of referrals.
Yeah.
Referrals in any business. I think Jake watched a similar video, but it was about one of the best ways to grow your business is through referrals, because those are the people that are going to trust you the most, pay you the most, and stay with you the longest when they come through a referral, because they already have a mutual connection. There's already a certain level of trust and affinity towards you and your business, right?
Yeah, I think no matter how good of a salesperson you are, you can never kind of create that credibility and create that level of kind of initial trust. I think human beings, like, they're initially going to say, like, if you introduce me to your friend, I'm like, well, I like Trey, so I probably like his friend, versus like if I just met you out of nowhere, I'm going to be like, well, does anyone else I know him? And then if you don't have that, then you have to now build your own mutual trust. So I think the key to any sort of sales is like just, kind of connecting on multiple points, right? Do they trust you as a person? Do they trust now your numbers? Do they think, you're good at whatever other skill that might be related to it? And it's like you go down all those levels of things and, you're going to be way further along. Yeah. So, I mean, and 1031 does help because that money is captive. And at the time, it was 2004, there was a lot of money flowing around. And so he was just looking for a good place to park it. I think for him, if he would have just got his money back, he would have been happy. I ended up doubling his money. So he was like, here's it all.
One other thing that hit my ears when you were talking, I remember it was a couple months back, and you were talking to me about what had happened the day prior, and you're like, yeah, me and my team sat down and we analyzed, I think you said something like 50, 100 deals or something.
Yeah, we did.
You guys just analyzed deal after deal after deal, and one thing that Jake and I are working on right now is this course called Deal Mastery 101, where we help people analyze and find profitable real estate investments. And since we've kind of started that process, and I've asked you that question and kind of heard about that, I've asked people, hey, how many deals do you analyze a week? And people never say anything more than like 3 deals.
Yeah.
But when you were talking about how you raised this capital, you went and you leveraged the amount of deals that you analyzed and said, I analyzed 50 deals and I found this one, and that probably helped you establish credibility.
I guess at the time that was a lot, but at the time I probably was only analyzing 3 deals a week. And then I just realized it wasn't enough. real estate's a private market. There's no stock exchange, right? You have comps, but those comps are delayed. So pricing discovery happens later. So in order to get ahead of that pricing discovery, you have to be in the mix. You have to be offering on properties. You have to come in second a lot of times. I mean, like the greatest way for me to figure out what the price is, the value of real estate, is to come in second. Because then I know, someone was really willing to beat me. Because if you start winning, you're like, well, shit, how much more did I pay than someone else? You don't know. Right. So if you're just overpaying all the time, you don't really know where the market is. You're just paying up. And so I like coming in second, especially if I'm going to go into a new market or if it's a new product type or whatever. I love coming in second for a few times. Then I really know, all right, there's depth. And then in the market, people have price support right there. Yeah. And you have to just keep grinding through properties, right? It's like, the more times you invest in a certain market, you're going to know right as soon as you walk up. I can run the numbers, but I bet you I'm making money on that at that price. You just know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think that just, again, speaks to the importance of making sure you do your due diligence, put in the work, put in the effort, analyze deals like a madman. Because if you're looking to get this done and this is really important to you, I think it comes with anything. If it's important to you, you're going to put in the hustle, you're going to put in the hours, you're going to do the work that's necessary to win. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to get through their heads when they first start a business or get into a new venture. The amount of deals you need to analyze, the amount of outreach that you need to do, the amount of advertising you need to do, the amount of hands you need to shake, it's probably 10 times the amount that you probably think you do.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just make it to the NBA because you can, shoot a three-pointer like 50% of the time. I mean, that's like one skill you need to have, right? So you might walk into the thing and say like, hey, I got a really good construction background, or I'm really good at numbers. But if you don't know every aspect of the business and you don't get good at it, then you're just not going to succeed on a bigger scale, right?
100%.
You have to have a well-rounded understanding.
Yeah. I like it. What do you got, Jake?
Well, I dovetail into what you both said, but when you say well-rounded understanding, what it tells me is one of the best ways for me to understand more about real estate or my ability to be able to help people is to do like I've been with Trey, been doing market research calls, right?
Oh, yeah.
And connecting with people to find out more specifically what's the bottleneck, what's holding you from getting to your first deal, what's one of the biggest challenges, and the number one thing people say is money, which we know there's a lot of money out there, right?
But there is money available for sure. Money, I think. Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Because I think this is the hardest thing for people to realize when they're just getting started, is that money is a commodity. People have money sitting in a bank account. They want to do something with it, guaranteed. They do not want to leave it sitting there. Their biggest thing first is fear of losing it. Once they get over that fear of losing it, which is the trust in you, then they're going to want to keep giving you more money. Like they'll have friends that have money because everyone wants to have a good deal. And so don't think of, as soon as you decide that money is not a hard thing to get, it's just like anything else, you got to work at it, you'll get the money for sure, especially if you have good deals.
100%. I mean, the golden rule, you find the deal, the money will follow.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the interesting thing is when most people say money, I know just based off of my experience and talking to so many people, it's really not money. In this ecosystem of finance, or more particularly in real estate, it's fear. People that have capital are trying to hedge their bets, and they don't want to lose something they work hard for, however they earned it. And then when you see individuals that are in real estate, well, let's say the people that are trying to get into real estate investing, or even people that are actually in real estate investing, this is something I do every day. And I wouldn't coin my expression as fearful, but I always have concerns about different things. I'm looking at a property in Oakland right now, right? And I'm saying, well, it's off 92nd, and it's a great price, right? But then there's government issues, there's landlord-tenant law, there's rent control, and then you can get shot for real in real time, right? So there's these fears about how this asset will perform for me. So in the ecosystem of finance, or more particularly in real estate investing, the fear component is the thing that I see. It does not discriminate. Money can be found. Yeah. Deals are had every day. And so that's just one of the takeaways that I've been getting is how to overcome that fear.
And you could also price your money to associate to the risk, right? So let's say you're a newer entrepreneur just getting into real estate. You might not be able to get the deal. Like I might be able to go borrow money from someone at 6% to go do all the deals I want all day. You might have to go to them and say, hey, look, I'll pay you 12%. Now that person's like, oh, well, I'm getting paid double what Tom can do. Is the risk twice as much, right? So then you could find a price for that capital always. Right. And now you might not make as much money, but what you're doing is building the credibility with that investor. And yeah, you're paying a little bit for that trust, the opportunity to earn that trust. But that's something I had to do too. Like I had to, I worked for the first like 6 to 8 years, just basically paying back money, and paying back my partners, all that money I raised from other people to get that first deal. Like I was able to get paid, but it was mostly to build trust and credibility. And so I just forego a paycheck to get trust.
That's interesting because we talked this weekend on our live, we call it Real Estate Sundays or Sunday School, right, for our Deal Mastery course. And it was about establishing trust with hard money lenders, right? And what are some ways that you look to establish when working with somebody that wants to work with you, or you want to work with them? What are some of the key components that you look for in establishing trust, or they have worked for you when you built those relationships?
I think it's the little things. It's like it's returning. If let's say someone wanted to borrow money from me, I would look at the little things that they do. Do they respond to the emails in a timely, professional manner? If I ask them a question, is the answer correct? If I say, hey, what's your sales comps? And they tell me X, Y, Z, and I went and looked it up and it's, ABC, then I'm gonna be like, nope, you're out, right? So it's like being honest with your process, being honest with your deal, making sure the little things check out. Right. And so that all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, everything he said has been true. Or she said that's been true. And so when you have those little things done and then you follow through like very professionally, very promptly, if you meet your investor out at the property, out at the site, it's like you're dialed in on any questions. Here's my rehab budget, and you actually have maybe the contractor walk through, and now all of a sudden you're building like more credibility. You have a real estate agent there that drives through like 4 or 5 comps. Now as an investor, like, oh, this person's dialed in. For even if it's your first deal, I would go through all that stuff. Right. So now you're building a portfolio of trust with this investor. But those are like little things that you're doing. And then if you do all that stuff and say, hey, look, this is a $300,000 house. I need a $50,000 rehab. I want to borrow $300. I'm going to put $50 of my own money in. And on top of that, I'm going to give it to you at 12%. Right. Plus a piece of the upside. Now you're like, oh, the investor's like, and now he comps out that house. It's probably worth $450 rehabbed. He's looking at it like, dude, this guy's going to work for 25 grand on this deal. Let's do it. You made a partnership with that guy. You're not trying to be like, oh, here, you give me 300 at 8% and no upside, because that's what maybe the market is for the best borrowers. Well, he can get that all day from the guys he trusts. So now you're doing something that's going above and beyond, and maybe you're providing a little better service than that guy's used to, or she's used to.
And incentivizing
them. To really look at your deal.
That helps.
Yeah.
That helps, right. I want to jump back to what you and Trey was really masterminding on. And Trey, you were saying, you were analyzing the fact that when you connect with a lot of people, the small amount of deals they analyze per week is sometimes none, 3, 4, or 5. And then we looked at the numbers and how you scale your deal analysis to find that one good deal. And again, through market research with people that I just try to stay very close to, what I realized is it reminded me of a saying that says, clarity shows charity, right? And so
clarity shows
charity.
Charity.
Yeah, and so the clearer you get, the more you can extract from something, right? Okay. And so if you've never seen football before and you're seeing this ball go to one side of the field to the other, right? You have no idea why this game is being played, but these guys keep running into each other. But then the more you understand some of the greatest football players, or how games are won, or how it comes down to the 1-yard line, and you see the talents that it takes to become a running back or throw 40 yards and hit it on the money, you become clearer about it. And the clearer you become, the more value and understanding, that's the charity you get from it, and then you have an appreciation for it, right?
Yeah.
So when I look at something like deal analysis, when you first get into real estate investing, there's so many things, including fear, that are presented to you. There's the information, right? And then that's theoretical. And then you start getting into deals, that's the practical component, right? And you kind of can't have one without the other, or they kind of go hand in hand. You learn some stuff, and then you actually have to get out there and see what a hammer looks like, or a building looks like, right? Yeah. Or a tilted foundation looks like, right? And then, but combined with those, you have more clarity, right? And what I've learned is that when we're looking at the deal analysis and any other component of real estate investing, it can be a lot to chew in one bite. So when I see why people wouldn't analyze a deal, and if I don't know a lot about real estate, well, why would I analyze a deal? Because I can't even get money, so analyzing a deal, it doesn't make sense. So there's these steps to it. And as you grow and you appreciate the different components, analyzing 50 deals would make sense based off charity and clarity, right?
Yeah.
By saying that, hey, I have a shot to do one deal that'll take me 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I need to get the right deal.
Right.
Because of these 40 deals that I'm looking at, probably 7 of them could make sense. But when I really I don't know. But let's say you do analyze, right? And you got 7, right? But when you get very meticulous about it, or you're analyzing deals every day, you really know the backyards and the communities and the environments of the condition of these communities, right? Of the 7 deals you can do, you can pick one, and it's going to take you 3 years to get it done. I need to pick the right one because I can make $1 million off one, or I can make 1.3 or 1.7, right? And it's all going to take the same amount of time, all going to take the same resource, and I can't get that 3 years back. So I would imagine when we look at like deal analysis and why somebody at some point in their career would be so meticulous about it is because I'm not just throwing darts and trying to make some success or go through some experience or take my partners on some journey. I am trying to get the best one.
Right. Especially initially, right? You think about let's say you and I go to the same investor, and we've both been like out in the market for a year, right? And I go to the investor and I have a sheet, and I say, here's the 500 deals that I looked at over the last year. And here's my favorite 10, and you went to the same investor and said, I looked at 50 deals, and here's my favorite one. Now, just from a sheer volume, the information could mean nothing, but if you now broke down that 500 deals into, hey, here's the trends I started noticing, and here's the trends that back up this, here's where they bought, here's where they sold at, all those things, your data is just stronger. And so, yeah, it's a pain in the ass to do it. Of course, no one wants to spend their time just underwriting deals and not doing one, but I think it's it's a necessary part of, it's unnecessary evil, right? You got to spend the time to get mastery of your subject.
Yeah.
Because you can't go to school and just underwrite deals. You got to be out there in the market.
I think it comes back to a question that Jake and I have, it doesn't come back to a question, but there's a question that Jake and I have been trying to answer through our kind of just back and forth, right? And when we're looking to go from the single family fix and flip space to the multifamily space, the scale in which you need to raise money is completely different, right? Yep. And the amount of deals that you have to analyze, it's true. And the scale in which the deals you need to analyze changes as well. There's different components, right? So when you look at going from single family investing to multifamily investing, what do you think is step 1 in that? Do you need to figure out how to raise the capital, or do you need to figure out how to analyze a good deal first? What do you think is step 1 in that?
Both. Because you need to be, in order to raise the capital, you need to understand the market. But in order to actually execute, you need to start working on your capital pipeline like today. And so, the things that getting 1031 exchange money is probably the quickest and easiest way because it's captive in the real estate space, right? So you have people that are like, I have to invest in real estate and I have to do it in a quick time frame. So they're already going to be interested in any deal they can see, right? Because they're going to their math is just different, right? If you're living in California and you got 25% capital gains tax and another 10 to 13% California tax, now you're like, all right, 35% of my $1 million is down the tube, or I can invest it with Jake, and here's my $1 million. And it's like, if he makes money on that, now you're up to, let's say you only give him back $1.3 million. They're still up. That in order, look at a 30% return on their $1 million goes to $1.3 million. If they pay tax at $650, they got a 100% return to end up in the same place. So you just de-risk their situation just by having a good deal. So I think spending a lot of time in that space, but then also having the ability to get a loan, right? That numbers I put down earlier, if you're buying a $4 million property, can you actually secure a $2.5, $3 million loan? Do you have the balance sheet to do it? Do you need to find a capital partner that will come in? Do you need to invite someone that has money in the real estate space that's looking for a partnership and saying, hey, I need boots on the ground. I like your work ethic. Are you willing to give me a piece of the upside? I know you're gonna do all the work, but I'm gonna provide my balance sheet and connection to, a few investors. It might, so there's always a way to get stuff done. You just got to be willing to like roll your sleeves up and do it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a mastermind because we're solving this, and you giving us a lot of you showed charity with clarity, right? The transitioning from single family residential property into multifamily, I at one point thought that they were very similar, and they have some similarities, right?
Of course. Well, you got people living in them. That's about it.
That's it. You can touch them too.
You know, they're buildings. I mean, but interesting, I think the biggest thing when you look at like a multifamily building and a single family home, it's just like the underlying systems that go into these multifamily. Like if you have a 10-unit building, now all of a sudden you might have a single water heater for 10 units, right? Versus like individual water heaters in each unit. If that big one goes out, that expense is way different than the water heater in a single unit. You might have electrical things that run through, you know, the whole building, right? That control, you know, a security system, or, you know, now you're looking at building-wide Wi-Fi. So, you know, you got to look at it like more like a commercial building than you do like a single family home, which is just kind of like this one single unit where one family lives in, and the systems are just that for that house. Now you got, you know, so that's what I learned early on is, you know, you can't just look at them like 100 homes for rent. No. You know, they are a thing of their own thing.
Everything is more. The money is more. The risk can be considered more. The sophistication and the importance of really getting clarity with your analysis is more. The forgiving is less. It can be less forgiving, right? And when I say forgiving, with residential real estate, if your numbers are wrong, you can refinance and put a tenant in there.
Yeah.
If the market has a shift, you can make some adjustments. And especially from, not to get too technical, there are laws that protect single-family homes, right?
Yeah.
That you don't have that protection. So when I look at commercial property or multifamily, it's a business.
It's a business.
And so when I say more, there really is a whole lot less play, if there's any play at all. And I don't suggest anybody play with investments, but
it's not playing around. If you're going to get into I mean, you could play around with like a duplex, you know, or something like that, because that's kind of not considered like commercial real estate quite yet. But if you get over 4 units, I mean, you're in a business, and you're going to sell your property like a business. Right. It's not going to sell like a little home or a couple rentals. You know, people are going to look at it like, what's your numbers? You know, how are you running your business? And so you have to have a financial operating statement. And I mean, that's another thing too. It's like good records, like having really good, clean records. So when you go to sell that, any seller is going to give you a premium if everything you ever done for that building is organized, and they can kind of go do their due diligence and understand, hey, for the last 5 years that you owned it, man, you kept this thing up, you collected all your rent, you have all your files in order for all your residents that live there, all your compliance paperwork, if you have some stuff with the counties, all like lined up, and then if not, like you're going to have to sell your property at a discount because people are like, what do I do not know about this deal? You know?
I think about many risks, and not to beat the head, but it's like when you look at multifamily property, you're probably raising capital most of the time, or doing some type of partnership. It's not frequent that people have 3 or 4 million. Some people do, but most people, when you're embarking in multifamily, don't have those. You're partnered up. And from a syndication standpoint, the legal ramifications that go around there.
Well, there's also that. Then you got investor, you know, ramifications around, you know, forming your partnership. If you're going to put money together into a partnership, there's a lot of risk associated with that, because now you're a general partner. Those limited partners, you know, are relying upon the information that you're providing to them. They can file suit against you because you are responsible for their investment. So, I mean, it's. I mean, you could more than likely you're going to lose everything you got. But, I mean, if you don't steal from them, and, you know, if you just fail, you just fail. Right. And so
you conduct yourself like an ethical businessman.
If you can you just fucked up. You're probably not even going to get sued at that point. I unfortunately have lost, you know, people's money in the past, and, you know, the great financial crisis like hit a lot of people. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It was one of the hardest things to do. It's like, we didn't have to lose our money, but we just came down to a business decision between, you know, myself as a general partner, my limited partners, and the bank. And it's like, hey, bank, we can't make this payment anymore because, half of our people moved out. Do you want to remake a deal with us, or do you want the property back? Then the bank comes back and says, well, we want the property back unless you give us $5 million. Where you're like, well, I only have like a $7 million loan, so you basically want me to pay the loan off. Then you go back to your investors like, hey, the bank's saying the property is only worth, $9 million. We bought it for 13. So we're gonna lose, our money unless we pay this loan down. And at that point, a lot of people just didn't have cash. So
I think that really speaks to the importance of making sure that you consistently back up your words with action and show people that I'm a man of my word. I'm conducting myself and I'm building and I'm trustworthy. I'm ethical. And then you go through those things, because then when you have to make those calls, it's not that it's easy, right? But I would imagine that it'd be somewhat easier when you know that, hey, I did my due diligence. I backed up the thing. I went through the process.
And I also put my own money in before I asked them for money. I was feeding the property. I wasn't paying myself anything. I was working for free for like 2 years, putting, like I said, my own cash back into the business, paying payroll, doing all this stuff, trying to keep the thing afloat, getting the best deal I could with the lender to kind of do a workout. And then it's just a decision on their own. Now, I think at the end, they didn't invest with me again, but we also, parted on just like, hey, that was a fucked up deal, and, wasn't sued or anything like that because I conducted myself ethically, didn't take any compensation that wasn't for me, and just really ran into, just probably shouldn't have invested. At the time, it's like in late 2006, you probably just shouldn't have been in the market. That's it. Just like
how could anybody know that, right?
I mean, I think there's, looking back, I mean, there was warning signs of just kind of frothiness in the market, and that just comes with experience. Like you see prices going up and up and up, and how long the train's been going. It's actually why I learned in 2021 when the market was going up and up and up, I pulled back. I was like, well, this looks familiar. And actually I started in 2019. I stopped investing heavily. 2019, 2021 into 2022, I was 85% net seller, because I was like, I've seen this story in 2006 and now I'm in a position to sell and wait. And so I think that's just experience though, right? And so, but those are things that you can't really learn until you've been through them.
Let's pivot the conversation to go more along the business end of things. I think we've covered a lot when it comes to real estate. Hopefully we've been dropping plenty of value for the Deal Mastery 101 people right over there. Let's talk about leading in your organization.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the size of your current company when it comes to the number of employees that you guys have?
Yeah, we got over 100 employees, 15 people here in my corporate office. I got an executive team underneath me. Got a couple of partners in the business that run kind of business units of the company, and so. But overall, kind of thinking about strategy of where we're doing, where we're going. That's really what my job is to execute. And so, but doing that in collaboration with the team. It's not like I'm up at night. Here's where we're going. We're taking the ship here. It's like you say, hey, I think we should go here. Here's and here's why I think we should go here. And then it's like kind of talking to your top team, and then they're saying, hey, we like that direction. Here's some thoughts we have being on the ground, or here's this business unit has maybe an issue with executing one part of that business plan. Like let's say for example, I want to go buy like a bunch of 1970s properties in Phoenix right now because they're kind of cheap. Well, then my operations team might be like, oh, we can buy like one or two, but contractors are really hard to find down there because there's still a lot of construction. So maybe let's not get too heavy on the investment side right there. Or my ops team could tell me, hey, it's really hard to find employees down there. Or the investor relations team could also say, hey, you're going to have a tough time. That might not sell well with our current investor base. They don't like Phoenix, or as an example. I'm just, so you have to take all those kind of feedbacks, because the people that are on the ground touching each, consumer or each, kind of customer, as you might say, you have to take their feedback in. And so it's your job as a leader to come up with ideas by seeing what's going on in the overall market, but then asking your team about execution and how they think the strategy might work. So
And what's the key to finding some of that great talent? Because that obviously the business relies on the CEO to provide direction, but you're basically saying it's not just on me. Like, I leverage the team underneath me and I provide general direction, and they help me determine on how we're going to get there and if this is the right steps to make. So what is the key to attracting that great talent to help you execute on the vision?
I mean, I think I've always just tried to be humble, and I don't care if I'm not the smartest person in my company. Like, I actually don't want to be. I want everyone around me to be smarter and continue to push, and drive our company to be better. And so I like I like being argued back, like, hey, this, I'm like, oh, I never thought about it like that, because those thoughts in that well-rounded discussion, one, creates a lot of buy-in from your team because they have a voice and they're able to kind of grow in their roles and to feel like some ownership and leadership of what they're doing versus being dictated to what they have to do. And, finding a real alignment of culture. I think, certain people might want to be in a business that operates and executes a certain way, or they might want a certain lifestyle. So it's like kind of figuring out like what your company culture is and then finding like-minded people like that,
Are there any particular questions or things that you go through in the interview process to figure out, okay, what does this person want? What do they want from a cultural standpoint, from a positional standpoint? What kind of questions do you make sure that you ask in that interview?
Well, I mean, since I only would interview for someone for like an executive kind of role, I mean, those kind of conversations just come across as, hey, where do you see your career going? In the past, when you worked for your last company, like, what are some certain frustrations that you had? Where did you not feel like you were challenged enough? Where did you not feel like you had enough ownership in the company? Because I want people that work, with me to feel like an owner, to kind of really be bought in. And so I'm trying to really create that collaboration with that individual and making sure that what they want is actually what I really want, because I don't want to have someone come in that says, hey, I really see myself, living in New York, and, doing this and that. And I'm like, well, our job offer is in LA, but I'm gonna try to make that work, because I really like you as a person. It's just, it doesn't align, right? Or this person says, I really see myself as being the head of acquisitions for your company. I want to come up in that. And I'm like, well, I kind of really saw you as more in this role, and I already have a head of acquisitions. So I don't, even though I might really like that person, they might be really talented, it's just not a fit. And then I think beyond that, it's just the values of the person, right? I'm very ethical. I'm very family orientated. Like, so I like people that, have a strong family background that, I feel like I can relate to, because if you're with all the people in my corporate office, they have all that same corporate value. So all of a sudden you come in with someone that's just like, oh, I want to go off and do my own thing. And, I'm running around the globe and party on my time off versus, the kind of people that, like to spend time with their family and do, then it's just, when we're all together, people have a kind of like-mindedness, So
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. You don't have any people going off and coming back the next morning totally wasted and I've made a ton of bad decisions.
No, they might, but I just don't think that's just the corporate norm, right? Yeah. It's just like, but there are companies where it's like they work hard and they party hard, it's like
the mortgage industry.
Yeah, exactly. So the mortgage industry, yeah. So, but that's okay if that's your culture and those are the kind of people that you want to get together to go do that. Then that's what you want to have. But I like, really, for me, it's like I want like trust, collaboration, high ethics, high morals, and then the skill set will work itself out.
Yeah. And let me answer that because that was a good question, and I'm always looking for talent as I try to grow a few things that I'm working on. Are there moments and obviously you said there's just executive positions that you would be interviewing for, but as you're looking at talent, are there moments that you meet people that maybe they might not have a necessarily information that you don't have, but they have a way of thinking? Maybe they think a little bit different, or they bring a skill set that you probably didn't already possess or doesn't come natural to you.
Oh, especially when I was first started. I felt so deficient in certain areas because I was like very good at numbers, but I had no idea how to go find deals and buy deals. That wasn't like my natural skill set. I didn't know how to, like, if we bought a property, I didn't know how to run it, right? So like the very first thing, I was like, let me get a partner that knows how to do this, and a partner that knows how to do this, and a partner that knows how to raise money, and I'm gonna go do what I'm good at, right? Then it was like over time, like I started to like gain skills in like certain areas, but my backbone is still like financial analysis, right? But I don't have to do as much of it anymore because like I have a wonderful CFO who has been with me for, 13, 14 years now. And like, we've collaborated, I've trained her. And so it's like being able to kind of like free myself a little bit from that day to day and then be more on the strategy side. But that kind of grows over time. And so in each one of those relationships that you have with those like key people, it's forming that trust so that you can let go, so that you can kind of do what you do best, which is going to go out, make partnerships, bring more key people in, right? Because that's what you're trying to do, is bring capital into your business, find more deals, find more key people.
Yeah, and I share this more particularly with my Deal Mastery 101 students, some phenomenal students they're a part of our community that's online right now. One of the things that I learned on my journey,
CEOs right there.
all of them, going far. But one of the things I learned is that we all learn differently, right?
Yes.
And when you learn how you learn, it's very important because I'm sitting here with the two of you, both phenomenal and very brilliant individuals. And I was talking earlier about having the right clarity can show charity. So like when I connect with Trey, he can go deep with some concepts very, very quickly.
He does.
Yeah, and
He does. No, I mean, his understanding of certain like media stuff, I'm like, how does he know so much about this? And it's like, it always blows my mind how deeply connected you are with your subject matter. You as well, though. I mean, you have a very strong, deep wisdom, which, when you speak, I can understand that there aren't just words coming out. It's very thoughtful. I
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I knew that was a connection too.
Yeah.
I knew that was.
So I've always loved enjoying talking to you about that because your words are thoughtful and deep, and they're well constructed, and but that just comes with time, right? So you've been a leader, so you understand what it looks like to be a leader. Trey's deep in social media, and he probably spends so much time and hours just mastering this that he becomes an expert, just like anything else.
Yeah.
But he probably learns way different than you learned, and I learned way different than you guys do. And getting the people in the right situation where they're learning the most effectively, right, you can accelerate.
And I bring it up with the Deal Mastery community because always trying to get 1% better every day. When you watch a podcast like this and you get the exposure of a gentleman like yourself that has done some phenomenal things in your industry and continue to do some things and lead people and accomplish everything you set out to accomplish, you knock it out the park. And you have Trey doing some very similar things, growing his business, connecting with the right people. One of the easiest ways to have success is to kind of watch those that come before you.
Yep.
And so if you look like and say, hey, I want to be like Michael Jordan, or I want to be like Tom, or I want to be like Trey, I'm going to do everything Tom or Trey does. It could be a bit of a disservice if you don't learn how you learn and acknowledge that, because what comes very fluid to you from a mathematical standpoint or numerical standpoint, or Trey from a media standpoint, memory and content standpoint, maybe that's not your path. But you can pick up some jewels from Trey, pick up some good things from you. One of the common things you guys both have, and that's what I said with clarity, as you start to get into real estate having so many components. Trey, when you go into analyzing the deal, he picks it up quick, right? And you can start telling yourself, well, I don't have what it takes to be a real estate investor because I can't pick that up quick. Or you can look at Tom and think that, hey, Tom's whole life looks like scaling multifamily and raising capital. Far from the truth. So understanding how we learn and then utilizing that to observe our mentors or those around us to pick up the pieces we can, but still sticking to your base on your strengths, right? And so again, what I'm saying is that with the clarity component, when I look at what it takes to understand multifamily deals, it takes a lot. And with working with a lot of people in my community, taking in so much information at one time can't take place. So if you're just getting into real estate investing and you're trying to understand deal analysis, a lot of times you're just not ready for that.
Right? Yeah. Well, and it's you're going to have something within that thing, you were drawn to real estate, right? So if you were drawn to real estate, what is it that was like, that drew you? What put it, is it just making money? Was it, I loved the idea of like when I first fixed up a house, like the way the fresh cut grass looked and how it was painted. Was it more the design aesthetic, right? Because those are all different skill sets that, relates to. Do I have, a deep understanding of like, hey, I wanted to fiddle around in the construction. Like I like things being down to the studs and rewiring electrical or whatever. Or I like digging into the idea of how to refinance out or whatever it is. Like you're good at some piece of it. So just start with that, be an expert on that piece of it, and then just kind of maybe get some people around you that you can learn from.
Yeah. Well, I see market study. Most people that I connect with, their barrier to entry, they believe the barrier to entry from an educational standpoint, informational standpoint, is lower. So to go get your doctorate, your attorney, to become an attorney and accountant, these things take time, money, and opportunity costs. It is communicated through social media and other channels that real estate investing is use other people's money, find a crappy house, and then you're rich, right? So because that messaging, something like that can be very assumed by a lot of people, they don't understand the nuances. So then they come and they say, hey, I want to get in real estate investing. And then they're not analyzing the deal. They're not raising the capital. They're not doing all the other components. But there are a lot of components. I would say that diving into multifamily, which you do, you have a doctorate in it. I would call that a doctorate, right? But the amount of time that you spent in analyzing deals, just growing your company and being a success within the umbrella.
I've been doing it for almost 25 years, so it's...
You probably spend as much time in your business as a doctor spends in a hospital.
That's 3 years longer than I've been alive, so.
Yeah, exactly. So,
That's how long
it's just time, it's just effort, and I think the other thing too is never being inquisitive about learning. Mm-hmm. It's like when an opportunity comes to learn something new in your business, take it, always. Right. And I think that's one mistake I see a lot of people, make is I'm really good at this, but I'm not gonna learn about that. Where it's just like, nah, go out with the contractor, go out with the CPA, take your CPA out to lunch and be like, hey, whatever it is, take your lawyer out to lunch. I mean, I remember learning about law, because at first I was like, man, I started getting these contracts coming in. I'm like, what the hell is all this shit? And so, but yeah, over time, it's like I could probably, have a minors in real estate law because I've read enough contracts. And, that's just part of like continuing to grow your skill set and not being comfortable with just staying in one place, right.
It's becoming a well-rounded person, right? When you're and I think when you're a well-rounded person, you can also have really good conversations with really good people. Okay, cool. Well, let's pivot the conversation really quick. Hopefully we dropped a ton of value for all you guys. This is the portion that we're going to open up for Q&A. So when you guys ask any questions, go ahead, unmute yourself, and then direct the question at somebody specific so they know who you're talking to. So we got Gerald on here, we got Borhan on here, we got Ulysses on here. Whoever wants to go first with this Q&A portion, let's launch it.
Yeah, I had a question for Tom.
We can't see all the way over there. Can you say your name?
Yeah. My name is Ulysses.
Okay.
So what was the strategy that you implemented into your business that really allowed you to scale?
I mean, there wasn't like a specific strategy. I think that's probably maybe simplifying things a little bit, but I think it was first of all having an investment idea that was scalable. So I think if you have a too general business plan, like I'm going to get into real estate, that's not scalable, right? It's like I'm going to go buy 20 houses in Stockton, for example. That's a scalable business plan. So you have to kind of, I'd say, figure out what you want to do. Like I'm going to buy 1,000 apartment units in Oakland. That's a scalable business plan, right? Because now you're going to build all your resources around doing that. So it's, what is your business plan? Then I can tell you how to scale it. But you have to, I would say, go get more specific into what you're actually trying to accomplish. And then once you have that specific idea, then it's like putting the resources around how to execute that plan.
Awesome. And it's never been easier as well. You got ChatGPT that'll help you write a business plan in 2 hours, and it'll be super extensive.
Yeah, but your business plan has to be something that you believe in, right? It has to help you organize your thoughts. So
that's
yeah.
what I've been using for.
I've been using it like if I have I just type out a freaking paragraph of what I'm thinking in my head, and then I just throw it in there, and then it organizes it so it's easier comprehensive.
But what's your thesis because if you don't have a thesis, then no one's going to invest with you because it's not an idea, right? It's just, I'm going to bring whatever I see. No, that doesn't work.
So Ulysses, investment thesis. Think about it. Do some research into it. That's an investment thesis and business plan.
And that's when I go back to clarity. Those are some of the things that I'm learning on, working on. All right,
Yeah,
right
it's
on.
all good.
Yeah, for sure. Who else has? Gerald, you got a good question for us?
Yeah, I got a question for Tom.
Go ahead, please.
All right, you seem like the mindset guy, right? You mentioned words of leading your team, believing in the team.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of dive into the mindset a little bit and ask you, and there are 3 things that you can debunk about being a business owner and your journey upwards of where you're at today. What would those be?
To debunk?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, one thing is you don't have to know everything or act like you know everything. I think the earlier that you can be humble enough and strong enough in your own skin to allow people to take a co-leadership role with you without feeling like you're giving up control, the faster you can grow. I think being like too micromanaging and protective of your business actually protects your business. I mean, it actually really slows your business from growing. I think, that's like, I feel like the number one thing. I mean, I don't know if I really thought about like 3 things as a business owner. I mean, you don't have to work 24 hours a day, I think is another thing. I did used to work, maybe like 10 to 12 hours a day, but I was never working 18-hour days. I don't think that created success. I think I was working hard with a purpose and being able to like kind of really get a laser focus on what I was trying to accomplish and getting the right people around me and the right resources kind of always allowed me to do more in less time. And debunking, I mean, you don't have to have a great degree. I went to Cal State Hayward, so you don't have to have some great pedigree background to be successful. Like I got a degree in accounting from a state college. So, and I didn't have any real connections when I started. So you can make all the connections that you need by just being out there and hustling and making it happen.
There we go.
Thank you, Tom.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure, man.
We got time for one more. Borhan, do you have something?
Yeah, I was listening to the part where you were saying about you stopped investing in like 2019, 2020.
Yep.
And how you're having like similar flashbacks of 2006. At what point did you realize you need to stop like being over leveraged, and where is your leverage level right now? Are you like 50% leverage? Do
Yeah.
you guys try to pay down, or where are you guys at this point?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I'm probably around 50%. In the run up, my max leverage point was probably like 2014, 15. I was probably only 65% leveraged, so I never actually levered up as much as I did before because I was only probably like 70, a little over 70% levered before the GFC, which a lot of my competitors were like 90%. So I've always been a little bit more cautious about leverage just because as a CPA, I used to see like people get, twisted, by bad loans. But in 2019, what was started happening is, I just in multifamily, we just, prices were just like going through the roof, and they were going past what I saw like the fundamental reason for prices to go up, which is, rents are going up, NOIs are growing, so your cap rate or your initial kind of entry point into the properties was only reason was going down because interest rates were going down. And so when I see, that kind of reminded me of like 2007 and 8 when people could just borrow more and more money through CMBS loans. I remember people were buying, $20 million deals and putting $0 of their own money in. Because they could just lever the whole thing with a CMBS loan at 80% and then a mezzanine loan at 22%, and they were taking 2% out. So, when I was seeing that, it wasn't the same level of leverage this time, but it was definitely the same level of irrational exuberance that the prices could never go down. So when I walk around a room and everyone tells me that all of a sudden they're a multifamily investor and the prices can never go down, I'm like, here, you could have all my shit,